Coming up today, South Korea's political parties agree to review lawmakers' perks and privileges as public frustration spreads over a spate of ethics scandals. South Korea's exports shrink for the 18th straight month in June, but there's a glimmer of optimism as the rate of decline slowed for a second consecutive month. Plus, Seoul, Washington and Tokyo urge UN member states to intensify their efforts to block trade and financial transactions with North Korea. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 1st of July. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to start today with domestic politics. Korea's three major parties have agreed to set up a special body to review and then cut lawmakers' privileges. The move comes amid growing public anger over allegations of deeply ingrained nepotism and corruption. Our Park Ji-won starts us off.
The floor leaders of Korea's three main political parties agreed late Thursday to work towards cutting privileges enjoyed by lawmakers. The issue will either be discussed at a new special committee at the National Assembly or at a new consultative body, although its exact form has yet to be decided. The move was sparked by growing outrage over a series of corruption allegations involving lawmakers. The co-leaders of the minor opposition People's Party stepped down this week, taking responsibility over allegations two of their lawmakers took kickbacks. Some ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition Minju Party lawmakers are also in hot water for hiring close family members at their offices. The three parties have also agreed to review lawmakers' immunity from arrest. Currently, all sitting lawmakers are being protected by the Constitution from being arrested or detained without parliamentary consent. The specifics will be hammered out at the newly formed body. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, it's no secret that North Korea is near the bottom of the barrel when it comes to how the regime treats the vast majority of its own people. A new report by the US government has confirmed what we already know, that North Korea is rife with human trafficking and slavery. Connie Kim with the report.
For the 14th straight year, the United States has branded North Korea one of the world's worst countries for human trafficking, again focusing the spotlight on the regime's flagrant disregard for human rights. The State Department's Trafficking in Persons Report 2016 lists North Korea in its bottom Tier 3 category, with countries like Syria and Iran noting widespread cases of forced labor and sex trafficking in North Korea. The report says North Korea holds an estimated 80,000 to 120,000 people in political prison camps in remote areas, and North Korean workers abroad are forced to work up to 20 hours a day with only 1 or 2 resting days a month.
About human trafficking, we're talking about slavery, modern-day slavery that still today claims more than 20 million victims.
Hitting North Korea with sanctions for its human rights abuses is one option Washington seems to be mulling following the North's test firing of a mid-range ballistic missile last month. The North Korea Sanctions Act enacted in February calls for a comprehensive report on Pyongyang's human rights abuses within 120 days. There is speculation Washington will soon announce sanctions blacklisting around 10 North Korean officials for human rights violations. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea has joined hands with the United States and Japan to press the international community to get more serious about punishing North Korea for its nuclear and missile provocations. Gonsoa has the details.
South Korea, the United States, and Japan are calling on the international community to actively implement UN sanctions on North Korea. The UN ambassadors of the three countries led a debate at the UN headquarters in New York on Thursday, along with other UN officials, scholars, and business people, on the assessment and challenges ahead regarding the implementation of Resolution 2270. It was adopted in March upon Pyongyang's fourth nuclear test in January. Seoul's ambassador Oh Jun said North Korea's 4 nuclear tests are evidence of the regime's unwillingness to abide by international rules. He added that making Pyongyang's nuclear development difficult and costly is the only way to curb its nuclear ambitions. U.S. Envoy Samantha Power stressed the responsibility of member states, saying financial transmissions to the north and goods inspections need to be enforced.
Member states need to make sure that unreported or illicit transfers to the DPRK do not actually occur.
Japan's ambassador Koro Besho emphasized that the issue is not only a threat to countries close to North Korea.
The nuclear question of North Korea, DPRK, is not just a question for immediate neighbors like us, but it is a great threat to the whole world.
The meeting also served to press UN member states to submit their sanctions implementation reports to a UN committee. They were supposed to do so within 90 days of the adoption of Resolution 2270. However, the majority have yet to do so. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, on the trade front, South Korea's exports have been on a downward spiral for a year and a half now, but there could be a glint of light at the end of the tunnel as the pace of decline in June slowed to its lowest level in a year. Kim Min-ji with the details.
Are Korea's exports on the recovery track? The Trade Ministry says outbound shipments fell 2.7% from a year ago to $45.3 billion last month. It marks the 18th straight month on the slide, but the rate of decline was the lowest since June of last year. On top of that, the average daily export value in June came to nearly $2 billion, the highest since September of last year. And exports denominated in the Korean won rose 2.4%, posting gains for the second straight month. The ministry attributed the better performance to a rise in exports of computers and value-added chips, as well as a recovery in shipments in major export items such as semiconductors and steel. Imports tumbled 8% on year to almost $33.7 billion, also falling for the 18th consecutive month. With that, the trade surplus in June came to over $11.6 billion, extending the surplus streak to 53 months. While the ministry expects exports to maintain recovery momentum in the second half of the year, it vowed to closely monitor global conditions in the aftermath of Britain's departure from the European Union. The ministry said it would take the necessary measures to minimize the negative impact on the country's exports. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's consumer prices rose in the 0% range for a second straight month in June. Statistics Korea says the index went up 0.8% last month compared to a year ago. That marks the same pace of growth seen in May. The agency attributes the sluggish gain to weak global oil prices, which plunged nearly 10% last month from the previous year. It's also coming from a 0.7% on-year drop in prices of agricultural, fisheries and livestock products. Consumer price growth overall has fallen short of the central bank's inflation target of 2% for the entire first half of the year. The Bank of Korea governor is set to hold a press conference in mid-July to explain. The government will set aside a combined $4.4 billion by 2020 for clear air policies amid concerns about the levels of ultrafine dust here in Korea. The Environment Ministry says it will allocate more than $2.6 billion to increase the number of eco-friendly cars in the country. The remaining amount will be pumped into other projects such as the installation of electric vehicle charging stations nationwide and a sizable tax break for drivers who replace their old cars with more energy-efficient models. The ministry also unveiled plans to increase the number of buses running on compressed natural gas, reduce fine dust emissions from coal-fired power plants and reduce air pollution from ships. Korea's top financial regulator has warned that there's a possibility Britain's decision to leave the European Union will have a long-term impact on markets around the world. The IMF also says uncertainties could pose a major threat to the global economy. Lee Min-young reports.
The post-Brexit shadow could be hanging over the global economy for some time. Financial Services Commission Chairman Im Jong-yong said Friday that even though local markets are stabilizing after being hit hard by Britain's unexpected decision to leave the European Union, uncertainties will linger for some time as no country has ever left the EU. The International Monetary Fund also raised a red flag, saying on Thursday that Britain's shock vote poses the biggest risk to the global economy, and calling on EU leaders and other policymakers to take decisive actions.
I'd say Brexit has created significant uncertainty, and we believe this is likely to dampen growth in the near term, particularly in the UK. But with repercussions also for Europe and the global economy.
With the EU and UK facing tough negotiations on Britain's departure, the spokesman said that the IMF is urging both to work together toward a smooth transition of their relationship. Meanwhile, Bank of England Governor Mark Carney on Friday indicated some monetary policy easing would be necessary over the summer in response to the post-Brexit market turbulence.
In August, we will also discuss the full range of instruments to supply that monetary stimulus, if necessary, the full range of instruments that are at our disposal.
The governor's clear signal of action to blunt the Brexit shock pushed sterling down by 1.2% against the dollar. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Now, staying in Britain, and some skillful political manoeuvring by his Leave co-campaigner Michael Gove has left Boris Johnson out in the cold, forcing him to pull out of the race to replace David Cameron as Britain's next Prime Minister. Now, Mr Gove has a good chance, but Theresa May has emerged as the odds-on favourite, and she insists there will be no revote on Brexit. Park Jung-hong reports.
With the political turmoil swirling in the wake of the referendum result, speculation about a possible revote has been flatly ruled out. British Interior Minister Theresa May, who is the Conservative Party's frontrunner for Prime Minister, says she will honour the people's decision.
Brexit means Brexit. The campaign was fought, the vote was held, turnout was high, and the public gave their verdict. There must be no attempts to remain inside the EU, no attempts to rejoin it through the back door, and no second referendum.
The no revote stance is shared by other leading contenders in the Conservative Party, including Justice Minister Michael Gove and former Defence Minister Liam Fox. Once considered the favourite for Britain's top political post, former London Mayor Boris Johnson has sensationally pulled out of the race. In a short statement Thursday, Johnson said that after consulting with his colleagues and in view of the circumstances, he wouldn't throw his hat in the ring. Johnson's announcement is the latest in a series of massive political bombshells since Prime Minister David Cameron announced last week he would step down in the coming months. Pundits say Johnson's decision has significantly boosted Theresa May's chances of succeeding Cameron. Park Jung-hong, Arirang News.
The death toll from the Istanbul airport attack has climbed to 44, with the deaths of a 25-year-old Turkish man and a Palestinian toddler. Tuesday's attack injured almost 250 people, dozens of whom are still in critical condition. As the investigation goes on, a senior Turkish government source told CNN Friday they have strong evidence ISIS leadership was involved in planning the attack. Turkish officials announced on Thursday that the three attackers were from Russia, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. The Russian attacker is believed to be from the Dagestan region, which borders Chechnya, an area known for its Islamic insurgency against the Russian state. The UN Human Rights Council has appointed Ojea Quintana as its new Special Rapporteur on North Korea. Mr. Quintana served as the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar from 2008 to 2014 and was highly evaluated for his practical efforts in improving the situation there. The civil rights lawyer from Argentina said he's well aware of the dire situation in North Korea and will pour all of his efforts into his new role. Mr. Quintana will officially be appointed on Friday, the final day of the UN Human Rights Council's meeting. His term is 1 year, but it can be extended to a maximum of 6 years. An Ohio man has died in the first known fatal autonomous car crash in the United States, raising concerns about the technology. The crash, which happened on May 7th in Williston, Florida, is still under investigation by US authorities. Tesla says the accident occurred when the Tesla Model S electric sedan crashed into an 18-wheeler at a highway crossway. The car apparently attempted to drive at full speed under the trailer. Tesla says the car may have failed to distinguish between the sunlight and the white tractor trailer, an issue raised before by another Tesla car owner. The company says it's beyond saddened by the loss and added that while its autopilot function is improving, it's not perfect and still requires the driver to remain alert. Finally, we're going to take a brief look at the weather, and it's pretty overcast right now in Seoul, and that is a precursor to the monsoon rain that we're expecting from this afternoon. Korea's weather agency says there's a 90% chance the skies will open this afternoon as a monsoonal front creeps northward. It's set to pour down on Korea's southern Jeju Island. A heavy rain advisory was issued there around 5 hours ago. The heavy rain will be accompanied by thunderstorms and lightning in some areas as well. It will really bucket it down in Korea's central and southwestern regions. Some parts of Jeollado province could see up to 150 millimeters today. The peninsula is expected to be under the influence of this monsoonal front until next Wednesday, so be sure to keep an umbrella handy until then. Well, that's all we have for now. Wherever you're watching us, have a great Friday and a nice weekend. We'll have more news for you at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.